The transfer news is coming thick and fast. We've got 20 of the biggest stories from the last 7 days, including the likes of Xavi Simons to Chelsea, Gyokeres finally getting the deal done to Arsenal, Nicholas Jackson to Manchester United, Ekitike to Liverpool. The list goes on and on. Let's crack on. Well, let's start with Xavi Simons then, because over the last couple of days we've seen major reports breaking in Germany that he is going to leave Leipzig for a fee reportedly in the region of £50 million, which looks like really good value given the current market. This is a player who's put up 35 goal involvements across the last 2 Bundesliga seasons, and in that time he's had significant injury problems to his ankle, so we're talking about a really good level of output. He's still just 22 years old, has some of the most unbelievable underlying data metrics, and most importantly, he is just pure silk to watch. He is a fabulous footballer. Now, the club that seems to be leading the race for him is actually Chelsea. Of course, they've lost Noni Madueke to Arsenal, and it could well mean that that fund is put towards a player like Xavi Simons, although it feels in some quarters they might have to have further outgoings to be able to afford this one. So let's talk about that fit to Chelsea. How do we see him playing? Is it going to be as a 10? Is it as a left winger? They've been chasing a left winger for quite some time now. Lots of names have been linked to them in that position. Well, he can do both. I think he's probably best in the 10 role, but is the 10 space actually there with Cole Palmer in that position, Enzo Fernandez able to step up there? I like the idea of him as a left winger that can invert, allow players to get on the outside of him, can create that box midfield we've seen Enzo Maresca get big things out of at the Club World Cup. I think this suits the Blueco model, and if Chelsea can pull this one off for £55 million, it is a wow. I like Madueke. They are different players, but there are arguments to be made this would be an upgrade, especially with the arrival of Esteval supporting in that right wing capacity. The real hole in the squad is the left wing, so Xavi goes some way to quell those worries. Overall, a fantastic player though. One of the most shocking rumours of the window so far that feels like it's actually going to happen is Granit Xhaka joining Sunderland. He's reportedly told Leverkusen he wants to leave the club. He's agreed terms with Sunderland. His agent has publicly come out and said it's all but done. Green light is there. They just need to find a fee. And I think that probably will happen. And it's not as if Granit Xhaka is some write-off, ageing player. This is a 32-year-old who is one of the captains of Leverkusen, an incredibly important cog to their midfield. You know, he started 33 Bundesliga games last season, 32 in their Bundesliga winning campaign. He is a brilliant bit of business by Sunderland. However you look at this, the wages might be large, his fitness record is excellent, he's a leader, he's in the top 5% of European midfielders for his progressive pass numbers. He's a huge upgrade on what they've got. There's no doubt, this is the most mind-blowing move I've seen this week. I mean, Granit Xhaka to Sunderland, who would have thought that a couple of years ago? Has he taken one look at Ten Hag and jumped ship? Because at the moment, Leverkusen are bleeding their best players. And from Sunderland's perspective, this takes their spending well in advance of £100 million on some really exciting players, including the likes of Adingra, Diarra, Enzo Lefebvre was made permanent. You can't say they aren't trying their best to stay in this league. Let's get the big news out of the way then. The here we go for Victor Gyokeres came yesterday. He's going to be joining Arsenal for a reported €63 million plus a further €10 million in add-ons. Is it just me that thinks that's a great fee? Because I have to say, this might be one of the most overthought moves on social media. I've seen so much debate. Is he a good signing? Is he the right fit? I don't really get it. They're plugging the highest scorer in Europe into one of the most complete tactical systems in Europe who need a number 9. Not only is he an excellent finisher, he's also worked and played in England. Yes, the numbers are jacked because he's been playing in Portugal, but they are so freakishly large that I just don't imagine him struggling to get chances and score goals in this Arsenal team. I truly believe if Havertz had played a full season last year, he would have caught 16, 17, 18 goals. The chances are there, the set pieces are there, and I've seen people say he's a transitional player, all of these goals coming against the lower half teams, they're all penalties. Arsenal need a bully in the box, and that's what they're getting here. The fee is not ridiculous, it isn't the 100 million that was talked about originally. 60 odd million euros is fine in this market. We're seeing players with far less credentials move for 60 million euros than Victor Gyokeres. He's 27 years old, so it's not a write-off for age. Arsenal need a plug-and-play win-now striker. The squad is set up to win a title or a Champions League. They are 2 or 3 players off of being the best team in England, and Victor Gyokeres certainly takes them on the right direction to doing that. I don't see any downside towards the Gyokeres deal. So for those reasons, again, I'm putting it in wow, man. I am. I think Arsenal have signed the perfect number 9 this summer. I think this is a better option than Benjamin Sesko. I think probably a better fit than Ugo Ekitike. overall, I just love it. How about Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich? This one will not go away. Lots of reports claiming that Luis Diaz has asked to leave Liverpool now. They've obviously rejected a move for about 67 million euros. There's reports it could get up towards 80 million euros. And I think from nearly everybody's perspective, this is a pretty good move. I do like it from Bayern Munich's perspective. Yes, he struggled at times in front of goal in really clinical moments, but he still put up 18 Premier League goal involvements last season. 13 goals. That actually took me away a little bit. 17 goals in all competitions last season for Liverpool. You can see why they want a big fee for him, because he is ready to go. He's not going to have a big adaptation period. He's at the peak of his career at 28 years old, and it would be a loss for them from a goal-scoring output perspective. But Liverpool will back themselves to replace Luis Diaz for that fee with a really high-level player. You know, if they were to, let's say, bring in Rodrigo as a replacement for Luis Diaz, there's lots of arguments to be made that as an upgrade, even if it meant them spending an extra 10 to 15 million pounds to get the deal done. I think from Luis Diaz's perspective, he goes there and wins trophies, competes for the Champions League still, on a massive wage. Pretty much every angle you look at it, I think this is a good move. Bayern Munich need a left winger following the exit of Leroy Sané. Jamal Musiala, who could have played there, picked up that horrendous injury. Thomas Müller has also left the club. His effectiveness in the final third will be a huge asset. His transitional play in the Bundesliga is perfect. He's so athletic, he's so dynamic, he's a great presser. I really like it. Renato Vega, close to joining Atletico Madrid. Now, Chelsea reportedly want 40 million euros for him, which is an incredible bit of business. He joined Chelsea for £12.5 million in July 2024. He played 5 or 6 Premier League games for them, went on loan to Juventus, was okay there, and now they're going to push a £20 million profit on that head. He's still only 21 years old and he's under a long contract, so they can demand that sort of fee. But it is a lot of money for Atletico Madrid to spend. And I'm really interested to see where he's going to play. They brought in Ruggieri to play at left back already, Atletico, haven't they? He wasn't cheap. Cardozo has come in to play in the defensive midfield role. He wasn't cheap. Clement Lenglet has been made permanent. He obviously exited Barcelona. That was a free transfer. So is he going to be a centre-back? Is he going to play at left back? He's a very versatile option. We know that from his time at Basel and what we saw at Juventus. I'm interested to see how Simeone wants to use him. I think it's a big fee, honestly. I think it's great business from Chelsea. It's okay for Atletico, though. Let's talk about Morgan Gibbs-White then, and his links to Tottenham. This is still being held up, despite the fact it felt like he was a day away from doing his medical. He didn't go on the plane with Forest because of personal reasons. However, it is expected he'll link up with the squad later in the week. Now, let's not get into the legal side of this. Let's just talk about whether or not he would be a good fit for Tottenham, and where would he play in this squad, given that Mohamed Kudus has arrived, can play centrally, can also play out wide. James Maddison is a great option for that number 10. Kulusevski can play in that number 10 as well. Lucas Bergvall can offer an option as an advanced number 8. So where does Gibbs-White fit? I think it's a really interesting question when you're going to spend £60 million on a player that doesn't necessarily have an extremely defined role. Now, we saw Mohamed Kudus in that pre-season friendly in very limited minutes against Reading, offering options on the left, but mainly on the right-hand side, able to float into the 10 space as well. Does it mean that James Maddison's future comes under scrutiny? Look, I really like Morgan Gibbs-White. 30 goal involvements across the last 2 seasons, 15 in each campaign. I think he's only getting better, and he's only 25 years old. So I'm going to say it's a good move, but I am intrigued to see what Thomas Frank's plan is with him. Spurs fans, let me know where you think he's going to play. Am I miles off? I'm a bit confused. Manchester United's pursuit of a goalkeeper, picking up a bit of pace. Onana picks up that hamstring injury. He's going to miss the entirety of pre-season. Despite the fact he has flown to America, he's not going to play any role in the games. There's question marks over Biandir. So Lamens' name has come to the fore. We're also going to talk a little bit about Dibu Martinez, but let's talk about Lamens, the Royal Antwerp goalkeeper. 22 years old, 6'4", making a lot of waves in the footballing community right now. And one of the biggest reasons for that is the underlying data supporting the fact he's one of the best young shot stoppers in world football. He's still only 22 years old, like I said, but last campaign prevented over 15 goals more than expected goals said he should have. It's one of the biggest swings we've seen in football this year. And he did that whilst making the most saves of any goalkeeper in the Belgian Pro League at the highest save percentage. At 6'4", he's a big frame goalkeeper. He comes and claims a lot of balls. There's a bit of chat. He reminds people of Thibaut Courtois in his style. Not the most natural on the ball, but more of a shot-stopping goalkeeper because of his size. Now, he's going to be much cheaper than a player like Dibu Martinez, who reportedly Aston Villa want £40 million for, and he's a totally different age. You know, Dibu Martinez over 30 would bring experience and Premier League pedigree, whilst Lamans you'd think would come in as maybe an understudy to Onana and pushing him pretty hard for a starting spot. At that fee, given his prospects, I'm going to say it's a good move. Man United need a goalkeeper. Sticking with United, let's talk Nicholas Jackson. Before I get into this, I want to hear from you guys at home. Do you think Nicholas Jackson would be a good signing for United? Because this is really split opinion amongst football fans online. Now, Nicholas Jackson might not be the tidiest footballer and certainly not the most natural ball striker or finisher, but you cannot deny he has been extremely effective for Chelsea. And are people forgetting that Manchester United finished 15th in the Premier League last season? Jackson has propelled Chelsea to 6th place to 4th place finishes. In that time, he scored an awful lot of goals. Last season, it was 13 goals in all competitions. I think it was double digits in the Premier League again, despite the fact he had disciplinary problems. He was rotated a little bit. The season before that, when he played an awful lot more game time, it was 15 Premier League goals. He's still only 24 years old. The underlying numbers in terms of his XG, his shot creating actions, his shot volume are fine. He's in the top 20% of European strikers. But I think one of his biggest assets is his link-up play. When he drops a little bit deeper and brings players into the games, he's really, really strong. It was one of the best elements of Cole Palmer's game, linking up with Nicholas Jackson under Mauricio Pochettino and creating chances that way. I don't think United can afford to turn their nose up at a player like Nicholas Jackson if he's available. But at £80 million, that's the reported fee, this becomes totally unrealistic. I don't see any world in which Manchester United have that sort of money after spending 130 million on Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, two massive quantities of money. United are going to be really looking to do smart business in that number 9. I would expect United to be looking at the loan market maybe even a player like Randall Kolo Muani if he's available on another loan. Nicholas Jackson at that fee, no chance. West Ham still in the hunt for a goalkeeper. Of course, Lucas Fabianski left the club on a free transfer, heavily linked to Mads Hermansen, who I think is a really good goalkeeper. He was excellent under Enzo Maresca, especially ball playing out with his feet. Last campaign in the Premier League was very tough. Obviously, Leicester were getting pounded every single week. Hermansen's post-shot expected goal numbers were still fine. I remember specifically the performance against Arsenal at the Emirates, where he was an absolute monster, a joke. West Ham have also brought in Kasper Ankergren, the goalkeeper coach recently. He's worked with Mads Hermansen in the past, and I think that might well be an indication that this move is pretty advanced. At £20 million, I think this is a really good move, and I'm actually a little surprised more clubs aren't in for him. Joao Palhinha is being linked to Tottenham recently. Now, Bayern Munich don't fancy him, Vincent Kompany don't fancy him. Let's be honest, 6 starts in the Bundesliga last season. Clearly the way he wants to play and the way we've seen Kompany historically set his sides up, Joao Palhinha isn't the most natural fit. He's not going to be a ball progressor. He's not going to pick it up in the first phase. He's not going to want to keep possession at all costs. He's much more of a dog out of possession in the Premier League. Of course, the 2 seasons he was there, he was tackle leader. Over 70 more tackles than the nearest player to him. He is going to groundy. He is going to win you challenges. But he's 30 now. Yes, he might give you a couple of good seasons, but in the long term, is there value there for them, and does it fit in with Spurs' long-term strategy, which has been signing young players recently, and that has worked well. You know, Bergvall, Archie Gray, Matthias Tell all coming through, Wilson Odobert also coming through. I don't know whether they're going to go away from signing that style of young player to then suddenly spending on a 30-year-old. If this is a loan move, 12-month loan or something, then immediately I think it becomes a good move. But if there's a big fee involved, 20, 30 million euros, I think it would be okay, but I want to see how it works under Frank. Next up, we've got James Trafford. Before we get into Trafford, Newcastle fans. I mean, what on earth is going on? He might well go to Man City now. Looks like Gahey could well go to Liverpool or even Tottenham Hotspur. In the forward lines, I mean, Joao Pedro, Teres Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo, Liam Delap. I mean, Hugo Ekitike. The list of missed out targets this summer feels so jarring, and I got a sense from Eddie Howe recently after that 4-0 loss against Celtic that he wasn't happy about how the transfer window was sort of unfurling, because like I mentioned, it now seems like James Trafford is closer to joining City than Newcastle. Of course, he grew up in the City Academy. He's spoken about being his home. It would mean he could go back to where he grew up, be amongst his family and friends there, and I think we have to be honest, if you're Trafford, the more attractive option is City, with Edison potentially leaving the club to go back to your boyhood side. side and be the starting goalkeeper. City have got a £40 million buyback option, but they also got matching rights. So if Newcastle agree a £35 million fee, City can match that and then Trafford can pick. And I just think that if that is the option, Trafford is going to go to Man City, especially if he's got the promise of game time following the likes of Edison or Ortega leaving the club. He was also, like Lamans, putting up sort of record-breaking post-shot expected goals numbers. His save percentage was ridiculous. He conceded just 16 league goals, but he's also really tidy with his feet. He's worked under Pep before. Future England #1, not much downside. Mark Gahey to Spurs has made some headlines over the last couple of days. I think this would be a really good move, But if I was Gahey, I'd want to go to Liverpool. You know, especially with the news that Ibu Konate still hasn't signed that contract. Gerald Quansah has left the club. Could you push for a starting spot at a title competing side? I think he could. But also, at Tottenham, you've got Romero in front of you. You've got Van de Ven in front of you. Vuskovic is arriving and looks like the real deal, by the way. Looks like a potential superstar. And it just feels like a more challenging environment. Like, it would be a step up from Palace, despite the league positions. But I still think there are slightly better options on the table, including the likes of Liverpool. So if Liverpool come in for him, I see him rejecting Spurs and going to Anfield. Jacob Ramsey's future have Villa coming under the spotlight a little bit because Nottingham Forest have had inquiries into him knocked back this week. Villa reportedly want £50 million. And Jacob Ramsey now is 24 years old now. So we're not talking about 20-year-old Ramsey here. We're talking about a player who started 19 Premier League games last year, 29 appearances across the campaign in the league. And again, I do think this would be a really good pickup for Forest. It reminds me a little bit of the Elliot Anderson move, one of the most underrated signings of last summer, a player with really high level ability. And there's a replacement potential for Morgan Gibbs-White. I actually, again, think this would be a good move. It'd be a big fee for Villa to get, who are facing a couple of financial issues. They've got targets of their own. And I don't think he's a guaranteed first name on the team sheet player for them, especially with Morgan Rogers at the club. If selling Jacob Ramsey allowed them to bring in players for this Unai Emery system and keep Morgan Rogers and keep Ollie Watkins, I could see this one happening, and I think it would be a pretty good move for all parties involved. James McAtee is the other player being linked to Forest. They're obviously building up a picture of players that could replace Morgan Gibbs-White should that move to Spurs go through. And at the right fee, again, I've spoken about recently, I really like McAtee. Again, a little bit like that Elliot Anderson deal. Could you take an undervalued asset at another side and make him into a star? This is a player who was the man of the match in the final of the Under-21 Euros. He has been playing every day and training alongside some of the world's best players under the world's best coach for such a long time now. I really do believe he can come in and affect an environment positively. Because last season there wasn't enough minutes for him. 300 minutes of Premier League football. He was left out of the FA Cup final squad. He was left out of the Club World Cup squad. It's time to go, and the Forest fit feels quite natural. So again, I'm going to put this in good move. You know, depending on how much Man City end up getting for him, there's reports of sort of Cole Palmer level fees. It might be a bit chunky, but Forest will be getting an excellent player. We spoke about Jacob Ramsey leaving Villa. How about Alejandro Garnacho going to Aston Villa? The reported price tag of £40 million in this market feels like excellent value when you stack it up against the likes of Jamie Gittins, Noni Madueke. You know, Alejandro Garnacho's age and his output in the Premier League as a proven asset is really good value at £40 million. And when you look at that Villa squad, with Rashford not being made permanent, I think there is a hole on the left wing for them. And Unai Emery would improve Garnacho, I'm convinced. His wage isn't ridiculous. He's still extremely young. The ceiling feels really high, so I'm not sure why more clubs aren't in for him at £40 million. Is it because of the perceived attitude issues? Well, I think there is an argument to be made that he would want to prove Manchester United wrong in that environment. At £40 million, Garnacho would be a good move. I'm not having it that he is some write-off player that isn't worth that. I think there's a really good footballer in there. Do people forget that progression is not linear? At his age, he's going to have down seasons, he's going to have up seasons, but as long as the trend is positive, which it is with Garnacho, look at some of the underlying metrics, then it's a good signing. He's a good player at the right age, and under the right coach like Emery, he could actually explode. We've got another number 9 for Manchester United that's been linked, and that is Benjamin Sesko. This is unrealistic, isn't it? For the same reason I spoke about as Nicholas Jackson, it's that fee. United do not have 80 million to spend on a number 9. In what world is it possible? He's 22 years old and he is one of the most talented young strikers in Europe. He's extremely athletic. He's got a really unique body style because of that athleticism in terms of his strength, his jump, his pace and power. His ball striking is ridiculous. But for 90 million euros, Manchester United would need a guarantee, and I just don't think that is what Benjamin Sesko is right now. 13 goals last season, 14 the season before that. He's still really raw, and the environment at United is so pressurised that for that fee, I think it would be a massive gamble. If he was joining a Liverpool or a City or an Arsenal, which are much more settled tactical environments that have a very clear blueprint and know how the striker is going to score goals, I would say, it's a lot of money, but he's probably going to be a success. But at United, I think the miss factor here, despite the fact he's an excellent player, and I really want to emphasise that, he's a really elite level talent, the miss factor is scary. It's more bad news for Newcastle. Alexander Isak, I mean, let's be real, he's not going to Liverpool now. They've signed Ekitike. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But these links to Saudi, man, can we just sack them off and put it in straight away? I don't think the PIF are going to want to take their biggest asset in Europe and strip him and put him into the Saudi Pro League right now. I just don't see why they would do that. I don't see the player wanting to go to Saudi, despite a few reports that he's reportedly given the green light. From nearly every angle, what is this move? Like, it would be rubbish. Let's not let it happen. 3 transfers that are pretty much complete. By the time you watch this, they might well have been announced, actually. Let's start with Mosquera. He has joined Arsenal. Really good move. Back up to Saliba. Yes, they have defensive options, and it's a pretty deep roster. But when a player like Mosquera's, his age, his physical profile, his ground wing ability, nobody in La Liga won more ground duels last season than Mosquera per 90. You can see why Arteta wants him. The fee is ridiculously low at, 13, 14 million pounds because he's entered the final year of his contract. This is a perfect signing. And I have to say, as we sit here today, if Arsenal can get Eze over the line as well, this window is looking tasty. Like, it's so good so far. I think Gyokeres is fabulous. Zubimendi's a great deal. Mosquera looks a really good option. I think Kepa as a backup is absolutely superb. Madueke's move, it's all right, and it offers cover on both flanks. That's fine. If they can get another forward in, they're chasing down Liverpool for this best summer window. Talking Liverpool, Ekitike has joined the club, 92.5 million euros, including add-ons, and there are reports in Germany he could be earning 300,000 a week. Don't necessarily believe those reports, if I'm honest. I can't imagine him fitting into that wage structure and being paid similar sort of amounts to Virgil van Dijk. I think he is an outstanding player, though, and we've spoken about his goal scoring. One element of the game that I want to talk about, though, is his creativity. I think it's been slept on a little bit that he put up 8 Bundesliga assists last season. He was in the top 3% of European strikers for his assists, his shot creating action, and his expected assists. His ability to drop deep is not being talked about enough, and I think it'll be a big positive for a player like Mo Salah to have a player to be able to link off of. Now, I'm not saying he's Roberto Firmino in that style, because he still wants to get inside the box and score goals a little bit more than Roberto Firmino did when he was younger, but certainly I think it's a massive asset to his game. This idea of him being a target man is false. He is not. Just because he's so tall, he is not a target man. He's going to drop in between the lines, he's going to link play, his feet are beautifully neat. I would have this in WoW, but I do think it's a chunky fee. If you took the fee out of it, though, and you just looked at the signings Liverpool have made this summer, they won the league last year and they brought these players in. Feyenoord fans predicted this, by the way. Feyenoord fans said that Arne Slot will rip that Premier League title-winning side up and put a load of new players in it, and that's exactly what he's done. Let's finish with Marcus Rashford getting his move to Barcelona then. I'm so happy for him. Brilliant news for Marcus Rashford. Look, at Barcelona, if they can register him, which I'm pretty confident they will be able to, he can have a real impact there. It might just be 13 league goals across the last 2 seasons, but he offers a totally different dynamic to any of that forward line. A lot of their players want balls into feet. You think Rafinha, into feet really. Yamal wants the ball into feet. Dani Olmo wants to arrive late in the box and get the ball into feet. Lewandowski is not a player who's going to stretch defences anymore. So Rashford offers that alternative. He also offers cover for 2 positions, left wing and Lewandowski up front. And I just think his pace and power in La Liga will be very, very hard to stop. I could see him scoring a bunch of goals for Barcelona if they can register him. It's also an okay deal for United. I know people were moaning about not getting a permanent fee. I think Rashford was going to be one of the most difficult players to get a permanent fee for because of his wages, and the fact United aren't going to be paying any of those wages is a big benefit. It's a 12 to 15 million pound saving a year. That's a lot of money. I think this is a good move. The bonus transfer we're going to talk about today then is yesterday's late breaking news that Johan Visser has left the Brentford camp. Not surprising, given that they've lost their manager, best player and captain as well. Newcastle have had a £25 million bid rejected for him. This is a really interesting bit of business for Newcastle because, like I said earlier, they have been rejected by loads of forwards. But Johan Visser, as a profile, might fit better than some of the options they've previously gone for, honestly. 19 Premier League goals last season, none of which were penalties. His off-the-ball work rate is incredible. He's versatile enough to play at any of the front three positions. He offers cover for Isak and both of the wingers. Is there a downside here? I think the only downside is his age. At 29, you don't want the fee to get too high. Brentford reportedly want over £50 million. I can't see that happening. But if Brentford lose him, do we have to start talking about them as relegation candidates? I think it'd be a good signing for Newcastle, but it's a hammer blow for Brentford. It would be a hammer blow. So there we have it, some of the biggest rumours of the week. Let me know what you thought of them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. I'll see you later. Goodbye.